Joanna Lumley, welcome to 7:30 and we're delighted to have you back.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Now, you're coming to Australia on tour, and I'm told that you're coming here to talk about your long career with its many highlights. Now, many of those highlights are familiar. What do you think are the elements that people won't be so aware of?
I'm planning to wrap in quite a lot of travel stories on this one, and sometimes it'll be travel stories that bits of it that sort of went wrong when we were filming, just because it's kind of quite entertaining. And I think that when you see the polished version of things on the screen, and that goes for acting as well as presenting documentaries, you just imagine it's an ideal world. And of course, to get there, as you'd well know, Sarah, I didn't mean that in a kind of critical way. What I meant is that things go wrong, and it's quite nice and funny to see them. And my life has been so long. I mean, I'm obviously going to have to lock the doors and keep the audience in for about 5.5 hours. I hope they won't mind.
Now, you've thrown me straight forward into, I was going to do this nice and neatly in a line, but you've thrown me straight forward into your travel documentaries, and I know that so many people love those. But what is it you think that is the appeal of those shows?
I think some of it is that some places we go to are familiar. I mean, it might be, Italy or France or something like that, where people have been to. But quite a lot of the places like Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan and things like that, Mongolia, people have never been to, nor will they ever go to necessarily. The Banda Islands, southern India, places that people maybe dream of going to, haven't got the money to, haven't got the time to, haven't got the inclination, but would love to know more about it. And I think that we're so lucky because we're usually following stories that we've researched that we hope will be unusual and different. So we're not just sort of sightseers or tourists. We're trying to find out different bits and pieces. They will sort of access all areas with me that when you go on holiday, you might not.
I heard you describing your work on the series, and you said that you travel without hair and makeup. Is that really true? And if so, I salute you, Joanna Lumley.
You don't travel with hair and makeup, Sarah.
Well, I'd like to.
I'm not saying from observation. Oh, no, I'm not saying, look at you, girl. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the thing is we like to travel light. And so we have a crew which is literally 2 cameras and sound, producer, director, and maybe an executive producer, then fixer, and then me. So at the maximum we're 8, and then we quite often absorb and pick up and carry with us our 3 drivers, let's say, who are carrying all the crew's equipment around with us. But we must travel light, and if we lugged along hair and makeup as well and wardrobe and stuff, it would be kind of catastrophic, because if you remain small, you can hire, if you have to, a boat, a bus, a thing, you can kind of move more quickly. If you moved with an entourage like I don't know, Top Gear, who used to travel with something like, 45 people. Mind you, that it's a different show, I understand that, but it becomes much more cumbersome. So we travel light. He travels fastest who travels alone. And I just have to do my makeup. Quite often hotel rooms, I don't think I'll find this in Australia, because you're a very cultured and brilliant country. But what we hate, what women hate, hoteliers around the world, is a top light over in the bathroom. You can't do your makeup.
The horror.
Here in this studio in ABC in London, you get good light on your face and you can see what you're doing. So sometimes I come out looking a bit weird because I've been doing makeup either by candlelight or torchlight or top light, and so I come out with very, very overdrawn sort of face. Clothes, I've worked out a system of just you roll them because you're never going to get a chance to iron them. And you just do what you can. And I have a little think about it and have to think of things. The last trips we've been doing, we've been sort of virtually alpine gear in blizzards, and also travelling in small boats and then walking through cultured cities like Bratislava and Vienna. So you've got to dress up a bit. So you just have, and you can't take that much luggage because quite often you're just cramming yourself into small cars and things. So it's interesting. It's a challenge. And I'm very grateful to the viewers who say nice things because they can't see the crumples.
Let me just go back to, I said that you're coming to talk about all the parts of your career. When I was reading about you, there was a thing I didn't know. I was personally stunned to learn that you'd been on Coronation Street. So just take me back. What was the lure of the soap opera in your early days?
Well, the lure of the soap opera in my early days was literally, I had about 3 weeks before I got Coronation Street, I was so destitute, so unable to be employed. I was just out of work. And I'd written to, I think, 52 of the little local theatres all around the country, you know, the repertory theatres, and said, is there anything I could do? I could be a dresser, I could make tea, I could do anything. Of the 52, 50 didn't reply, and 2 of them said, no, we don't want you. So I said, because as an actress, you can't employ yourself, you have to be employed. And then suddenly this chance to play Ken Barlow's girlfriend came up. And it was only ever going to be 8 episodes. But I thought, this is going to be magic because I will be so good in it, Sarah, they will want to keep me on for years. And when I came to the deathless words, no, Ken, I can't marry you because I don't want to stay in Coronation Street, I said, oh, please don't make me say these words. Why are you making me say them? They said, well, because your part's over. I said, oh, please let me stay on. Anyway, they didn't. But it was magic. And I have a great loyalty to that show because a lot of directors and a lot of actors cut their teeth on these so-called soaps, which are the highest quality of filmmaking and acting, all done with virtually no rehearsal. The actors cramming lines, delivering them, going, understanding things. And it's very lovely to have a character who you get to know. So people like William Roach, who's been playing Ken Barlow literally since before the flood, he's got to know Ken Barlow so well. He is Ken Barlow. So it's lovely to have a character who you can rely on. I've had a couple of those in my career. 3 really. One was Purdy in the new Avengers, and to be in 26 episodes of something means you don't have to keep on proving yourself. You can just be that person. The other was in Sapphire and Steel, and the other, of course, was Patsy and Ab Fab. Once you get to know the character, they're yours and you can do what you like.
Just go to that question about the new Avengers and the wonderful, glamorous Purdy. Is it true that you had to audition with 800 people?
Well, they'd gone through the world. They'd already looked at me and my sad work, probably on Coronation Street. I don't know what they didn't like. And they went, no, I don't think we want to see her. And then eventually my agent somehow probably bribed them for me to join. And it was like one of those queues in a hospital where you just sit on a seat and move up one by one as the other one comes out looking a bit glum. And I thought, anyway, I had a feeling about this little character. I knew vaguely what they were looking for. Patrick Macnee, who was the original Avenger, who always had either Honor Blackman or Diana Rigg or Linda Thorson, and there were 2 of them. This time this was 10 years later after the last one, which was Linda Thorson. And they wanted to get a young man and a young woman who could do all the action and stuff like that. And I just felt that this was a part for me because I'm quite sort of tomboyish. I like doing stuff and I felt that I could be a good action person. And I was shaping in my mind the character that this girl could have. And they went, well, I don't know. And I did the most ghastly thing, Sarah. I slammed myself against the door and they said, thank you. And I went, you have to test me on screen. And they went, blimey, all right. So they tested me. And luckily they tested me with Gareth Hunt, who got the part as well. But it was a lifesaver because although the money was strangely very small and we got no repeat fees, that mattered not a jot because it was the door swung open into a new world where then again, whether they like you or not, nobody has to ask who you are. And as an actor, that is of such importance, it can't be overestimated. Magic.
You had a repudiation as a young actress. So you'd been turned down by RADA, one of England's snootiest and best drama schools. Did you send them a photo of yourself in the Avengers after you got the part?
No, I did not. But then I just joined the ranks of astonishing actors around the world who also turned down. People like Anthony Sher and things, also discarded. I never felt sad about it. But what I didn't want to do, Sarah, was to keep on going round all the drama schools. I was 16 at school when I applied for RADA. Completely unsuitable. I had done nothing except school plays where I always played a man with a beard because I was tall. So obviously I was not an ideal candidate, but I thought if I tried other drama schools and they hate me as well, then they might be telling the truth and I shouldn't be an actress. So I thought, I shan't listen to that. Okay, I'll do something else and I'll get into acting in another way. So I thought there's always, in a big ruined house, think of it, there's always a door left open. And I thought somewhere I'll keep walking around the door of acting and I will find a little window that's open and I'll jemmy it open and I'll get through another way. And so although I was a model, which was fine, I didn't really mean to be a model, but everybody was a model in those days. Literally, if if you didn't look actually like a horse, you could be employed as a model. But I didn't want to be a model. So I just thought I will take any work. I will take commercials or small parts, or I'll play people's girlfriends. It doesn't matter. I'll just get in there and I'll watch and I'll learn and I'll understand it. And one day, it'll be great.
Let me talk about one of the big doors that swung open, which was, of course, to Absolutely Fabulous. Now, you were working there with comedians with very serious comedic chops, particularly in the person of the writer of Absolutely Fabulous. How long did it take them, the wonderful Jennifer Saunders, how long did it take them to realise that you were also someone with extraordinary comedic chops?
Well, I think the thing is that Jennifer Saunders, OK, I love her, but literally she doesn't think terrifically far ahead. So she just thought, look, we can make something work out of this. And she developed this character called Patsy, who she hadn't really thought of, but she knew she'd be a best friend. But in the writing of the first script, she hadn't actually described what Patsy was like. So I invented a bit of Patsy. I thought she would always have her hair up. She would always have red lipstick. She would always start the day looking pretty fabulous until everything went a bit wrong. She'd had a bit, I'm hitting this bloody microphone again, until, the day unravelled, and she unravelled with it and got a bit. But she was a staunch friend of Eddie, who of course paid for everything. And they were very close friends. And I think what was bliss about the show was that Jennifer had spotted a hole in entertainment, which was a dysfunctional family of such ghastliness that you couldn't believe it. I mean, the two women were so ghastly that we used to, when we were rehearsing, we used to just lie on the floor and cry with laughter. But then we did it live in front of an audience. Nobody seems to know this. We did it live in front of an audience of about, 300 people at the BBC Television Centre on a Friday evening, and it was desperately important to get it right. So we were really adrenaline flying along, and Jennifer would sometimes come on with extra lines, and we sort of knew where everything was. 5 cameras following us and great screens and the audience behind it. So it was pretty buzzy stuff. It was wonderful. It was wonderful.
I had no idea that it was done live. I wanted to ask you about something about Patsy. And the question is why we still love her so much. Is it because she is, apart from being incredibly funny, but she's also so unapologetically Patsy?
I think so. I think also because the gay community loved us quite early on, they got it very fast. In New York, the gays just got it, and it became a kind of cult viewing. So it's nice for chaps to dress up as Patsy, because I'm tall, and they put the hair up and get a fag and a glass of something and go, hello, sweetie, and they've always got very good legs. So they look great. But I think the other thing is that Patsy's sort of indestructible. She's sort of gender fluid. She's almost a cartoon character. No matter how bashed or beaten down or useless she is, the next day she springs up looking okay. Had to put self-administered Botox during the morning as she's putting makeup. I mean, they were just ridiculous. I loved them, and I loved it when we saw them as very old people. And we had all kinds of prosthetics made to make us look really jowly and old and scrabby with scraggy necks and bald caps underneath very thinning hair, awful hands, little humps, dowagers' humps on their backs, and little saggy bosoms in sandbags hanging down in front of us like this. We could hardly walk, we were laughing so much. And we were going to do a shot on location, dressed as the old people. We all had to get in a bus and go out to wherever it was, at Reading or somewhere, where we were doing this outside scene. And we all filed into the bus with all the makeup and then all the crews behind us. And Jennifer and I sat pretty near the front, and I was near the window, dressed as this monster with very loose false teeth, thin as wool. Well, anyway, we stopped at a traffic light, and there was a car beside us down there, and it was open. It was at summertime, and there was a man in there with his family, and I looked out of the window. Hello, Roots. Hello, lovely to see you. Like that out of the window, and he looked up and said, "Oh, look, it's Joanna Lumley." Put me in my place. Put me in my place. It was as funny as anything you can believe, Sarah. Yeah.
I think I said to you just before we started that I spent a long time last night rewatching old episodes as part of my preparation for talking to you. There was something that I hadn't expected, which is, along with all the jokes, and I laughed just as much as I always did, but I found the relationship between them more poignant than I remember. It could just be that I'm getting old, but there's a long scene with them in the bathroom being mean to each other, and I found it very poignant, actually.
I know. I think the whole thing, it had much deeper, because strange enough, a lot of comedy comes out of a kind of tragedy as well. They're very closely linked, you know, masks of comedy and tragedy are entertainment. I think that there was something akin to love between those two. They literally existed together. They were coexistent. When they were separated and Patsy went off to do a job in New York, she couldn't function on her own. And Eddie tried to go off and do sort of new wave things and learn chakras and stuff, was useless at that. And eventually came out to look for Patsy in New York. And Patsy was stranded on the roof. She didn't know how to get down again. She didn't know where the escalator was. She'd taken a bottle of vodka up to have a smoke on the roof. And Adina came up on a helicopter. And it was adorable, actually, funnily enough. Looking back on it, it's a real rescue moment. It was heavenly. And I loved the idea that when they were very old, Safi's still having to look after them both now, and they're both then in a home, and they've got sort of intravenous body coming into the arm, but they're still there together. I loved it. And we'd invented backstories. So if anybody asks me anything about Patsy's life, we've invented backstories. I know her whole life, right from being born in France to a mother who didn't want her, to becoming Eurotrash, to being looked after by Mrs. Monsoon, aged sort of 13 in kindergarten, you know.
It is the most enduring comedy. We could obviously talk to you all night long, but I think I'm obliged to stop at some point. We'll all look forward to seeing you in Australia. Thank you for all of these characters.
Don't go, Sarah. Are you just casting me off? Do not cast me off, Sarah. Okay.
Or hey, actually, you know what? I'm not going to cast you off, but you've just given me a little segue there. Just before I go, I want to ask you one thing, because there is a show in Australia that I don't think we know so well, which is the great precursor to all the Castaway reality shows, which is you as a castaway. You loved being a castaway, didn't you?
It was extraordinary because, funnily enough, the man who cast me away is now the producer of all the travel shows I do. And it was so long, it was 30 years ago, but it was before any of them. And the idea was just to put Patsy on it. Well, the idea was to put Patsy on an island with no vodka. And I said, well, that wouldn't work really because she doesn't function without Adina. And it would be very boring after 2 minutes. But if Joanna Lumley, could do it, and we could make it really tough, we don't have any cheating. I wanted to see how much one could survive with practically nothing. Well, this same producer, Clive Tallow, gave me practically nothing. So I had some knives, a couple of knives to cut things with, a pound of rice and a few old I had some matches which could light in the rain, but I had to use flints I had nothing. I had no comb, no toothbrush, no soap, no nothing. I had nothing. I had no bed. I had no spoon. I had nothing. And so I lived like a little farouche animal for about 9 days. What I loved was that within a short time, and Aussies know this better than we do here because you've got much more of the outside world in you, is that in a very short time you begin to get your old animal senses, your instincts back. So I could tell quite soon when the tide was about to turn, when the rain was literally minutes away from falling. You could just begin to find these old instincts, and I loved it. I loved being there.
Your recall is truly astonishing. I will stop because if I let myself go, I really won't stop. We're looking forward very much to seeing you in Australia. Thank you for all of the wonderful characters that you've created, and we'll keep watching them until the end of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. You're fabulous.